Hey, at my last RTFSC, I was talking about how the web server Falcon, which is a new async HTTP web server in Ruby. Actually, it's not new. It's been around for a while, but it's new in that Shopify has finally deployed it to production. This uses the async HTTP library and actually many other libraries. So we're going to kind of dive into that. And we'll start first by cloning socketry async HTTP and crack this thing open. All right, so let's open the README here, and here's the deal. What is this library? Well, it's an asynchronous client and server implementation of these protocols. That's what's really nice about the way that Samuel organizes his code. He has them broken apart into these very clean kind of boundaries. So the server has nothing to do with the implementation of these protocols, right? I mean, it does, but it's separate. And that makes it kind of easier to jump through these things and understand what's going on, right? So inside of here, we have lib async HTTP, and I guess let's dive right in. First of all, the thing that I notice when I'm expanding these is I'm recognizing a lot of the HTTP spec, and that's what I like about these abstractions. And I think something that Samuel does really well with his code is it's not too far removed from the actual underlying protocol implementation. So if you're familiar with HTTP or HTTP2 and you're looking through this code, you're going to kind of understand like, oh, okay, this is an HTTP body. Now where things get a bit confused is there is a separation of repos. I think like it's almost too separated. And if I just stuck with only reading through this repo, we wouldn't get very far. And you know what? I'm going to try that right now just to see like how far can we get if we were not looking inside of protocol. But something you'll notice is protocol is missing in here, right? We don't have a file in here called protocol, but if we look at the gem spec for this thing, you will see that we have all these protocol libraries that are in here. So, and you know what? We should clone this one. We'll get this on standby. All right. So, okay, we're going to include HTTP body, which is just coming from protocol. If we clone that, so we have HTTP client, and you can see we have a client and a server here, right? They kind of behave slightly differently. And if we look at kind of what's going on here, I would assume that we're going to see some different kind of concerns around like, oh, here's the way that a client is going to connect. And then it kind of puts the protocol, it pulls the protocol in there, right? Because it creates a connection, and we see that right here, right? These are connection objects. So it's saying, hey, we have a pool. We're interested in having a pool for our client, and we're just getting these things called connections. Maybe these are TCP connections. But we can see that that's going on here. And that makes a ton of sense, right? We have an async HTTP client. We're concerned about connections, and eventually we want to layer a protocol onto that connection. Let's keep zooming through here. So endpoint is this kind of HTTP2 concept. I guess it is in... We have different schemes here, right? So we have, this is an endpoint that the client and the server can both run into. So it supports these protocols. And again, you can see we have these schemes right here. If we keep going here, we have this thing called internet. I've run into internet before. I'm trying to recall what it is. But again, we see all these things up here that are referring to the protocol library. So let's keep rolling here. Let's actually open server and see what's going on there. All right, so again, like we can see here we have this thing called a server, and a server is just kind of dealing with accepting these connections. So you can see that's what we're doing here, right? We have a thing called a peer, address, task. These are async Ruby concepts. I'm kind of rusty at what these are off the top of my head, but the long and short of this is you can see that we're dealing with accepting connections here, and eventually whenever we're all done fulfilling that request, we're going to close that connection. Makes sense, right? This is some more async code, which is just saying, hey, we need to run async code inside of a reactor. I don't have time in this RTFSC to go into that, but let's jump into it. Oh, look at this. We have a protocol folder here. Before I said that there's no protocols in here, so maybe I was wrong about that. Let's keep diving into this. So in HTTP, we can see is this bidirectional. So there's a few things here that go into, let's see if we have an HTTP1 server in here. There we go. There's an HTTP1 server. So let's see if there's some things that we recognize in here. We have a ready signal. There's like error codes and things like that that are available in protocol. we can see some rack stuff here. This is like a rack hack that used to start streaming. So we have HTTP 1, HTTP 2. I'm going to stick with 1 for now. Let's see what a request looks like inside HTTP 1. Okay, so of course we have a path. There's a certain format to the URL. Request may want to upgrade, and this is like kind of how HTTP 1 kind of hacks its way into WebSockets. So let's see what a response looks like. Again, there's upgrade, hijack. So this looks like it's a thin, not a thin layer, but it's an extension of protocol response. And let's see if there's something for that. Yeah, all right. So you can see this also extends the concept of an HTTP response, which is probably in one of those protocol libraries that I talked about. So what's nice about this code is it is using inheritance to kind of build up and layer on some of the implementation details as the source goes from being kind of this abstract protocol to an actual implementation to something that like a Falcon server would consume and use to serve up. So that is one, I think, excellent thing about CMUL's code is that it's composed in a way where you could do a lot with it. You could roll your own web server if you don't like Falcon and just have your own kind of control interface into that. You could use Async HTTP to deal with server and client concerns for if you're building a client or a server. So it's pretty cool to keep in mind. And I think we're kind of like, are we done here? I mean, there's more we could get into, but I think I want to open one of these gems just so we can see kind of what's going on under the cover. All right, so we are going to clone a different gem, socketry / protocol HTTP. All right, and let's see what we got here. This is so rushed. I know, like whenever I go into 2 gems, it's always just so rushed. So I'm kind of doing a disservice to Samuel's source code here, but it's all in the name of kind of watching somebody reason through this and trying to make sense of it. All right, so we're back in HTTP, and this is just kind of something that I think is applicable both to HTTP 1 and HTTP 2, right? We know we have a body. We probably have headers somewhere here, right? So again, this is something that's very nice about Samuel's code is that if you're familiar with the spec already, you can open it and know like, oh, and the headers file is things that deals with headers for cookie, right? There's all these cookie concerns that we have in here that just deal with that. So this is another reason why I think Falcon and kind of the async ecosystem, it seems like it's built to last a decade. And you just see that in any piece of the source code that you look at. Content encoding, right? There's all these kind of weird encoding things that if you found a bug with it, it would be pretty straightforward to find this file and fix whatever that bug is, make a test for it, and it would be like very clear, right? Here's all the tests for this. So it's actually quite readable. If you're familiar with the protocol, it's quite readable, and that's another reason why I think it's just very well written source code. Again, cruising through here, right? We know like, oh, a request, it has headers, it has a protocol, it has a method. So there's just very clear things in here. We can see these methods are hard-coded from the string to the constant. So there's a lot of pretty good stuff in here that, and again, this is like the most abstract representation of HTTP. So the HTTP2 libraries, no doubt, probably inherit this and implement some of those details. So HTTP 1, HTTP 2, and kind of adds their own special sauce to that. So I think I'm going to leave this here. There's obviously a lot more to get into, but I do want to end with, if you are just looking at one source code repository, it's not going to be the full picture. So make sure that you are looking at socketry and be prepared to clone like at least 2 or 3 repos if you want to kind of fix certain things in here or understand the source code. But again, it's other than it being spread out across multiple repos, it's actually very clear, very readable. And if we're talking like a 10-year code base here, maybe it's not crazy that the stuff's kind of spread out across the different repos. All right, I'm out.